Hey, welcome to lesson 8 of the beginner guitar quick start series. In this lesson, we're going to learn your first two chords. Those two chords are A minor 7 and then a C major. These two chords are going to be really useful for you. You're going to be using them a lot throughout your guitar career. The A minor 7 is great to start with because it's pretty easy. You're going to have some good success with it initially. And the C major chord is really great for helping you learn the basics of how to make really clean sounding chords. Now, both of these chords and all the other chords we're going to learn in the Beginner Quick Start series are called open chords. And open chords generally have two requirements. They usually occur on the first 3 frets of the guitar, and they have at least one open string that you're going to play with them. Throughout this lesson, I'm going to be giving you some tips for your fretting hand technique. They're going to help keep your chords clean and buzz-free. I'm also going to be giving you some technique tips that are a little bit subjective, but they can pretty much apply to everyone. Before we jump into learning chords, you actually need to know how to read a chord diagram. So let me just go through that with you real quick. If you look at a chord diagram, you're going to see 6 vertical lines. Those vertical lines represent the strings of the guitar. If you're looking at the diagram, the one to the far left represents the low E string, and the one to the far right represents the high E string. The horizontal lines on a chord diagram represent the frets of the guitar. And if you look up at these chord diagrams that we're going to be using in this lesson, you're going to see a rectangle or a block at the top of the chord diagram. That represents the nut of the guitar. That's just for reference to help you kind of keep track of where you are. The dots you're going to see on a chord diagram are there to tell you where to put your fingers. You're going to see 2 types of dots. You're going to see filled in ones or black ones, and then you're going to see hollow ones. The filled in black ones represent the root note of whatever chord you're playing. The numbers in the circles on the chord diagram are telling you which fingers to use when you're playing a particular chord. So, for example, on our A minor 7th chord, if you look at the chord diagram, you're going to see a circle with a 1 in it on the first fret of the B string, on the 2nd string. That's telling you to use your first finger to play the first fret of the B string. Another part of chord diagrams that you're going to want to be aware of are X's that occur above the nut. If you see an X above a string, that's telling you that you shouldn't play that string at all. So in the case of our A minor 7th chord, you're going to leave the low E string out. Before we get started on this A minor 7th chord, I just want to make sure that you realize that you need to stay relaxed as you're making these chords. You shouldn't have any excess tension because that can always kind of open the doorway for injuries. Stay relaxed when you're making these chords, and the only pain that you should feel at all is the pain in your fingertips as your calluses build up. Then, after 3 or 4 weeks, a month or so, that should get better too, though. All right, to get started, just stick your fretting hand out in front of you like this and pretend like you're holding an apple or a baseball. That's a great posture to keep in mind when you're thinking about your fretting hand technique, right? And what you want to do is just bring that hand up and put your thumb on the back of the neck, and that's just the perfect starting position to keep in mind as you learn these chords. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is kinking your wrists. A lot of players tend to kink their wrists really far this way when they're trying to make chords, or they kink their wrists the other way. And this way can really hurt after a while, can really stress out your wrists. And this way it's going to be really hard to make the chords to get your fingers where they need to go. So you want your wrists to be more or less straight. Mine's a little bit curved like that, but that's generally a good posture to have when you're making these chords. Okay, as far as technique goes, I'm going to cover 2 things as we make this A minor 7th chord. 2 more things. The first thing is fret placement, and the second thing is finger posture. So let's get our first note on. Take your first finger down on the first fret of the B string. And you're going to want to come down right behind the fret. When I was talking about fret placement, that is what I'm talking about. You want it to be right behind that fret. I'll show you why. The farther back I go, the more buzzy that note gets. So you want to be right behind that fret. The second tip that I want to give you is for finger posture. And by that, I mean you want to come right down on the very tip of your finger. The reason for this is if I don't come right down the very tip of my finger, my index finger is going to brush up against this high E string, and it's going to mute that string. You don't want that. You want to come right down on the very tip of your finger so it doesn't mute any of the surrounding strings. All right, let's get the second note that we need for this A minor 7th chord on here. Take your second finger, put it on the 2nd fret of the D string. Those are the 2 notes that you need to fret in order to play this chord. So make sure you're coming right down the very tip of your finger, and make sure you're coming right behind the fret there. Once you have those 2 notes in place, what you're gonna do is strum the top 5 strings of the guitar, leave this low E string out. Now, listen to the chord that you just made. Was it clean and clear like that, or did it sound more like this? Double check yourself, make sure you're coming right behind the frets, make sure you're coming right down on the very tips of your fingers. This may take a while for you to build up the coordination and the muscle, but if you follow those 2 rules, your chords will get clean. Okay, when you're learning chords like this, get it on there, play it, leave it there for a while, 30 seconds or so. And then take it off, shake your hand completely out. And then put it back on. It may take you a while to get it on, that's fine. You're working on your muscle memory here. Take it off, leave it on there for longer than I'm doing in this video, right? Leave it on there for a good while, 30 seconds is good. But taking it off and putting it on like that is a real good way to firm up that chord in your memory. The next chord we're gonna learn is a C major chord, an open C major chord. And this is a great chord for letting you know if you're coming down on the very tips of your fingers really well or not. Let me show you what the difference is here. Here's the C major chord. And watch what happens when I relax my fingers just a little bit and don't come down on the very tips. Listen to it now. Almost all the notes in that chord just disappeared, right? So just that little motion from there to there is all the difference in the world. So if you had your A minor 7 chord, all you have to do to make a C major 7 is take your 3rd finger right here and stretch it out to grab the 3rd fret of the 5th string or the A string. And if you'll notice on the chord diagram, that's a black note, so that means that's a root note of the C major chord, which means that this is a C note. So do the same thing you did with your A minor 7 chord. Put that chord on, hold it there, take it off, shake it out. Remember the tips I gave you, come right behind the frets, come right down on the very tips of your fingers. It may take a while, you may have to go 1, 2, 3, but that's natural. You'll get better at it with time, and eventually you'll be able to go right to that chord. So a couple more tips I want to give you when you're learning chords. The more ways you can kind of attack something to memorize it, the better chance you're going to have of remembering it. So when you're making chords, look at the chord and try to visualize or memorize what that chord actually looks like. Another thing you're going to want to do is don't even look at the chord. Just once you have it on there, close your eyes or look away and just try to concentrate on what that chord actually feels like too. Another tip to help you memorize chords faster is to practice these things several times a day. If you can practice these new chords that you're learning 4 or 5 times a day, that'll be awesome. You don't have to do it for very long, 5, 10 minutes. But the more times in a day you can practice these chords and memorizing them, the faster you're gonna learn them and the faster your hands are gonna remember them. Your fingers might be pretty sore for a while, but like I said earlier, that's gonna pass in, maybe 4, 6 weeks, something like that. And one thing I wanna warn you about, a lot of people get frustrated because they can't make clean chords because they start trying to learn chords and then change between chords before they actually have the shapes learned really well. So right now, I don't want you to try to switch between the A minor 7 and the C. Just work on those individual chord shapes, getting them down as good as you can and going right to them. Just work on each one individually for now. In the next lesson, we're gonna add 2 more chords to your chord library, and I'm gonna give you some tips on actually switching between chords smoothly. I know that's an issue that a lot of beginners have trouble with. So if you have any questions about making chords and making them sound good and buzz-free, you can leave them here on the comments on this page or email me, Nate@guitarsystem.com. See you later.